Hey, everyone. Welcome to episode 9. Wow, we're already that far of Finish Line with Joe Hardin. And today I have Chris Morrison. Chris is a father, ultra runner. He was Ultra Signups Pacer of 2023. Um, Also, if you follow him on social media, you probably enjoy his funny and insightful content. Um, I really enjoy the flair and like the fun that he brings to trail running. And So I just really wanted a chance to sit down and get to talk with Chris and get to know him more. And before I bring Chris on, I just want to remind everybody, friends of the pod especially, if you're enjoying the pod, do us all a huge favor. Hit subscribe, like, rate, share, review. Um, we need all the help we can get. We cannot do this without you. So without further ado, let's bring Chris forward for this fantastic chat.
Hey.
Hey, what's up, Chris? How's it going?
What's up, Joe? Good, man. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm getting better at that intro one of these days, right?
It sounded good to
uh,
me.
all right. Um, yeah, man. So I've been following you on social media for a while, and I've always enjoyed the reels and like the content. Um, and I've always kind of liked your spin on trail running, and I guess we can dive deeper into that. But let's just get started. Let's just kind of dive into the deep end and just right out of the gate, who is Chris Morrison?
Oh, man. Chris Morrison. Chris Morrison is a father and a husband. He is an ultra runner, um, a friend, and a content creator as of recently. I'm finding my creative side as in the last year and a half or so. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I always enjoy it, and something I wanted to talk about a little bit before we get into maybe like your running and ultra running story
Yeah.
is something that I enjoy is like a lot of content in trail running can be that kind of geared towards like staying hard and like the suffering and like and like self deprecation and all that stuff, and I get kind of caught in that myself too, and that's something that I really like when I like look at your page, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's funny. It's insightful. It's not all. It can be slightly more serious or whatever when you're and stuff like that. But I just always love the spin of how you like approach this. It's not like super serious all the time and like pain cave and suffering and all that. So I just kind of want you to unpack like what got you to that point um, in your trail running journey.
Yeah, I definitely started out with that same type of like whatever you want to call it, the David Goggins type mentality, right? My whole attitude towards like running and then especially ultra running at first was to like run myself into the ground. Like I was gonna somehow make myself harder, tougher, more disciplined. These were aspects that I felt like I was lacking in my life or areas that I wanted to improve in. And I saw running in that manner as a way to maybe learn these lessons or teach myself how to be tougher or more disciplined. And and maybe that's what I needed to do at the time. And maybe it worked for me at the time. It probably did to some extent, but it also caused me to like run through injury and run with herniated discs until the point where I had to take 4 months completely off from running because I could barely walk. And it sucked a lot of the fun out of it, to be honest. And I think I don't know, somewhere along the line, I think I discovered that if I could have as much fun with this as I could and make it more enjoyable, I would actually be able to do it more and have more longevity in the sport and in something that I want to be able to do for a long time. The way that I was doing it wasn't sustainable, either physically or mentally. I was just going to burn out and be over it. So, I started looking at it like this is fun. This is being out in nature. This is adventure. This is feeling good, moving your body. This is time for me to hang out and with my buddies and talk to my friends and meet like-minded people And and then I just started trying to show that aspect on social media, just show, not necessarily that I had this strategy that that's how I was going to present myself, but just presenting things in a way that was authentic to me, and showing the way that I do things or the way I approach things or showing my personality. And there's a lot of the stay hard type content out there, and I could just regurgitate what a lot of other people regurgitate, or I could just be myself and try to find my own unique voice in this. And it's funny because I don't even always know what that is. I'm just being me, and I'm just putting stuff together and putting it out in the world. So it's always interesting for me to hear other people kind of repeat back to me or tell me their take or their perspective or what they get out of what I put out there, because I don't always have some like fine-tuned idea of I'm trying to present it in this manner.
Yeah, that's cool. It just kind of comes organically to you. That's I mean that just shows you're being genuine too. Like you're just kind of throwing it out there. And yeah, I mean I certainly I take things way too seriously sometimes, and I'm learning to have more fun with it. And that's what I just always loved about your page. Is like, man, all right, this is, it doesn't have to be like just like you. I think I even relate to that with you. I think we both kind of started with reading David Goggins, right? I think I've heard you say that previously. And it's just like, oh, like your foot hurts, like I'll suck it up and stay hard and keep running. So I love the spin on it. And yeah, same thing. It wasn't sustainable for me at all either. I'm a father and a husband, and I'm also in my 40s, so it's not, I can't always run through each little twinge or pain or
Yeah,
anything like that. So,
I'm almost there. I'll be 40 in January, so I'm getting close. But like you said,
stay.
like that was a reason that I kind of got out of road running and like marathon racing, because I was taking it so seriously, and it was all about how fast I could do it. Like that was the only benchmark that I had was, and it was silly to me because I'm not winning races. I'm not getting on the podium in these races. I'm trying to complete them, and then yeah, maybe I had a time goal, which is fine. And I know some people do this for time. That's just not always my biggest priority. But I'd run a marathon, and if I didn't PR my marathon time, I'd be pissed off. Like the last 3 months or whatever, however long I took to prepare for it was a waste of time. And I'm like, well, this is what is the point of this then? I'm not a professional. I'm not racing to win these things. Why am I taking this so seriously, beating myself up, not having fun? And so that's why I left road racing, and I didn't really want to bring too much of that into the ultra running stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I used to just, when I first started running, I just like nose down, just running, try to run as hard as I can. And I was, not really having a whole lot of fun. And then I realized that all the fun happens, at party pace in the back of the pack anyways. And
Yeah.
it kind of, I think we briefly talked about the elites a little bit in the green room. It kind of looks lonely up there anyway. So, I mean, that's cool, but it looks so lonely. Um,
Right.
well, you touched on your running story just a little bit with road running, but so what got you into running? What's your running story journey? I guess.
So I started running in 2012. Um, I had just completed treatment for alcoholism for the first time, and I came out of rehab, and I just wanted to like accomplish something that I was proud of, and I wanted to achieve something and maybe have some kind of healthy habits back in my life, like exercising. I hadn't done that in years of just alcohol abuse. And I really just kind of randomly, I couldn't even tell you exactly why, I decided on running and decided to sign up for a half marathon. I think I signed up for a half marathon with about 3.5 months or something to train. And I downloaded Hal Higdon's novice half marathon for beginners, whatever it's called, free plan online, and followed that and trained and ran the half marathon. And then it just kept going from there. The next year had to be the marathon. And of course, I was doing every local 5K, 10K, every race in between. But yeah, but really what started it was just getting sobering up and then trying to find some type of healthy outlet, some kind of goal to work towards, keep myself busy, and healthier than I'd been living. And it seemed like a really low barrier to entry. Like I was like, well, I just need some shoes and some shorts, and I'll just go out my front door. It seemed pretty simple.
Oh man, yeah, right. Just hey, it's cheap, right? All you need is shoes and shorts.
Yeah, at the
it,
time
then
it was. I went and bought some $40 like they weren't even running shoes. They were like cross trainers from in Alaska where I was at the time. It's called Fred Meyer. It's Kroger. It's Fry's here. It's different names, different places, but it was Kroger. They're like a full store, shoes and clothing, and I bought some cross trainers there for like $40, and I wore my old basketball shorts and just went. I didn't have anything fancy for like the first year. I still don't really
that's
have anything all
phenomenal.
that fancy.
Either do I. I have a pretty minimal. Trying to pay for shoes, I have a pretty minimal apparel budget now.
Yeah.
So run me through the progression of like road race, like what outside of the Goggins book. Um, when was the moment you're just like, oh man, trail running, like I've got to try this? Run me
Yeah.
through that.
It was kind of a combination of things. So I grew up hiking. Like I always loved going out hiking, being in the mountains and stuff like that, of course, in Alaska. But I didn't really know trail running was a thing when I lived in Alaska. I'd heard about cross country running, but I don't know, never really paid any attention to it. And then we had moved here. And by here, I mean Phoenix area. I was living a 5-minute walk from South Mountain, which has all kinds of trails. There's a lot of trail runners out there. There's a pretty big trail running scene here. Um, so I had easy access to trails. I was kind of burnt out on the road stuff. I was wanting to still do endurance sports because I like the endurance aspect of it, but not wanting to do like road marathons. I even did triathlons for a year, like in
Oh, nice.
2017. I did a couple like Olympic triathlons, just trying different things. And I think I just started coming across some accounts on Instagram of these people that were trail running and doing these ultra marathons. I had started working in Phoenix and I had a decent commute. I was commuting for an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. So I started listening to podcasts, started listening to Joe Rogan, and then the
Oh, yeah.
David Goggins come on, the Cam Hanes come on, the Courtney DeWalters come on. And I'm like, whoa, there's 100-mile races, these trail races, these mountain races. I didn't know anything about it. And I just went down the rabbit hole of like YouTube videos and, finding out then, okay, there's shorter distances leading up to this 100-mile distance. And it just sounded like up my alley because it was kind of a combination of running, but also hiking and being out in nature. I mean, for me, it's a combination of running and hiking. Um, Being out in
Same.
nature and it just and going these long distances to me sounded like more like an adventure, and just finishing this distance is the accomplishment. I For whatever reason, I've never been too hung up on time with ultras. Like I'm just happy to go out there and finish it. And if I have a great race, awesome. If I have a shitty race, sorry, can I cuss on here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If I have a shitty race, but I grit it out and finish it, I'm stoked on that too.
Yeah.
Um, so it just checked a lot more boxes for me as opposed to just running for like speed and performance sake. It mixed my like love of the outdoors and hiking and all of these things. And then just the idea of going these longer distances just sounded so epic to me. Um, yeah, I mean, as soon as I first started hearing about it, I knew that I would attempt like 100-mile race at some point. I didn't know when. I wasn't in like a huge rush, but like as soon as I learned about it, I kind of knew that I was gonna be on a course for that at some point.
Yeah, nice. I agree with that. Well, there's a lot of things that you just said I resonate with. First of all, thank you for sharing a bit about your sobriety journey. I'm
Mm.
also a sober runner. I'll have 5 years coming up soon.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations.
so same things, treatment and all that. So and also same thing happened to me. The Goggins book, Rogan, YouTube, and I knew before I even ran my first ultra, like, all right, like I'm gonna something about that 3-digit 100 number just like
Yeah,
grabbed a piece of me. I watched I think it's the Day in the Life by Billy Yang and like the
yeah,
Why by Billy Yang. It's just like
yeah,
I have not been the same person since I watched that YouTube
yeah.
video, and just like I've been obsessed about that. But yeah, so that's cool that we kind of have a similar path there.
Yeah, those are
So
the exact same YouTube videos
yeah.
that got me hooked on it too. I
Oh
mean, hooked
man,
on it
yeah.
before I was even anywhere near able to do anything
E-
like that.
Even though I don't really like adopt the Goggins mentality very much, I'll still like. I mean, if you're like in a pinch, it's nice to go back and listen to that. It's like, oh man, like all right, like I'm gonna be a savage just for like a little bit, like a part. Like I like to like joke like hashtag stay hard some of the times or whatever. But
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I totally agree with that because like it's not something that's always easy to do, and there is times when it's really hard and you have to push through. And I don't mean to make it sound like there's no utility to that type of tough
yeah,
mindset. There is. I just don't think it's sustainable to do 24/7. But I think that's maybe something I don't always communicate as much because I do get a lot of comments and DMs are like, man, you just make it seem like a breeze or something, and I'm like, whoa, it's not always a breeze like that. Maybe I need to portray some more of the harder things because it's definitely not like I'm just out there and it's all rainbows and unicorns every mile because it's not. It's definitely not, and you got to have some toughness and grit for sure. Just like you said, pick your moments when you need to
yeah.
do it. I can't do it all the time. I don't need to do it all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Jason said semi-savage. I agree with that. It's like
Yeah,
be a savage for a little bit, but also, every once in a while you gotta you gotta not run when you have a bone sticking out of you or something.
yeah. I had a hashtag that I was trying to get to catch on for a while, and I kind of forgot to do it. But I was hashtagging things. I think I was hashtagging them "stay semi hard."
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll okay. I'll if it's all right with you, I'll join you with that because I tried
All
doing the
right.
stay hard sometimes or something,
Yeah.
and I was like it didn't get anywhere, but because I you know I'm kind of a softie, and I'll whine a little bit to myself on trail, and
Yeah.
so it's like I kind of like to poke fun at myself, like, but then I'll have moments where like I can really bear down and like get stuff done too. But for the most part, I'm like silently like complaining the entire time
Oh yeah.
I'm running a trail or an ultra mostly. But
And I'm sure most people are doing that. No, I don't think if anyone's out there just having a great time or they're out there just being the toughest son of a bitch the
yeah,
whole time, they're probably not doing that either. Maybe that's what's being shown, but I'm
yeah,
sure most
yeah.
of us are whining.
If I could, I'd probably break out into tears every once in a while while I was doing some of this stuff. uh, Well, all right. Something else I want to ask is, and it's always the big question with ultra runners, right? So, what's your why?
Man,
It's a big one, I
it's
guess.
I know it changes, like I said, it used to be um a way for me to kind of like force myself to develop these skills or these coping skills as far as just like being tougher, being more disciplined that I felt like I was lacking in my life. But honestly, right now my why is just like adventure, especially with these upcoming races that I have. It's adventure and it's going to something that's like so unknown. Um, Once I get past 50 miles, in this upcoming race I have, once I get past 50 miles, I'm in uncharted territory. And then with this race that I'm doing in May, you know, it'll be even more so. But I just think that that's those types of like epic journeys or adventures or whatever you want to call them are something that's like lacking in our lives nowadays. We get up and we have our morning routines, and most of us go to our jobs from 9 to 5. We come home, we make dinner, and watch TV, and it's a pretty routine life. And I think that I can kind of like have this like longing for these like adventures and these epic journeys and like going and doing something where I can kind of have an idea how it's going to go, but I really have no idea, and there's going to be surprises and twists and turns, and it's going to be hard, and I'm going to have to overcome things, and I'm going to experience things I've never experienced before. And to me, that's the intrigue now. It's not really about like making myself tougher or even proving to myself that I'm tough enough to do it. I'm pretty sure I can do these things, and I just want to go out and have that experience. It's such a unique thing, and I kind of feel like nowadays it's almost like you have to manufacture these moments and these journeys into your life.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. we kind of live in like a where like our days like overtaken by screens and all, all this stuff. So like, yeah, I can see that, like, and just like you, like my why has changed. I don't know how many times in the past few years, but I'm starting to lean more towards, like my why now is just like, I just love being outdoors. Like, it's like a little bit of proving myself that I can do hard things, but I've learned, kind of like what you said, is I'm almost certain I'm capable of doing these things, but
Mm.
it like you, it's like a little bit of like the unknown and like the journey and like a little bit of self discovery, but also
Yeah,
I love being like immersed in nature and it's like a controlled journey in some way, because there's aid stations and all that stuff, but it's still like
yeah,
enough. You're putting yourself enough out there where there's a lot of unknowns. So yeah,
yeah,
man, I love that.
yeah.
Uh,
I wanna, yeah, experience some things and some highs and some lows and stuff that I've never experienced before in my life. That's exciting to me.
so something that really stuck out, um, a while back, you were voted as 2023's Ultra Sign Up Pacer of the Year,
Yeah.
and that's super cool. But the reason why that stuck out to me is I was thinking about what kind of person it would take to be voted Ultra Sign Up. Everyone knows what Ultra Sign Up is. It's a
Mm.
huge, huge, huge thing. Like, what would it take? What kind of person would get enough votes to be Pacer of the Year for Ultra Sign Up? And I was thinking long and hard about that, and that just shows me I bet community is really important to you in the trail running world, and I want to talk to you more about that, about giving back, because I know that's a huge, we take so much from the sport, and I think we should give back, and that's something I'm working on too. So just run me through like pacing and like the community, and I know that's a big question, but
Yeah.
it really stuck out when I read that about you. So
Yeah. I mean, the community, the community here in Arizona is awesome. The community that's online that I interact with is awesome. Like, I mean, running in general, but specifically trail running, it's just like, it's so supportive. It's been my experience that it's so supportive, inclusive. And I have, in this last couple of years, I mean, I have more friends and good friends and acquaintances and than I've ever had in my entire life, and it's all connected through this trail running thing and this ultra running thing. Um, as far as pacing, like I almost like, probably not almost, I almost enjoy pacing more than racing, because you're out there in the race event and you're getting to like be on course and experience it without the pressure of you being the one that has to race or you being the one that has to run like 50 miles. Maybe you only have to run like 15 or 20 miles. And then just being there in a support capacity um, is so much fun to me. I've paced a bunch of buddies here locally. I paced a guy that lives in Canada. He came a couple years ago to run the Black Canyon 100K, and
yeah.
said, we had connected online through Instagram. And he was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna be down there. I need a pacer." And so I went out with his family and crewed him all day, and then paced him for like the last like 15 miles. And but the pacer of the year story was really centered around me pacing my friend Michelle at a 50K here. So, typically 50Ks, you don't have pacers. Um, this was her second 50K, her second ultra. It was a couple weeks before the race, and she was, and we have the same coach also. And but I had connected with Michelle in person and through Instagram like multiple times over like the last couple, 2, 3, maybe even 3 years now. And anyway, she was stressing about the cutoffs and for the race, and had just posted about it publicly. And our mutual friend Ruth reached out to me. So Ruth volunteers at like almost every Air Viper race there is, but she doesn't do a ton of races herself. So she just has all these race credits that you earn from volunteering. And she's like, "Hey, I'll just transfer you enough race credits that you can enter this race for free if you'll just run it with Michelle and just stick with Michelle the whole time. Help her get to her cutoffs on time." keep her company, be moral support, whatever she needs. And so I was like, yeah, totally. I love this so much that when anybody else is getting into this, if I can do something to support you, I will do something to support you. And so I asked my wife first and she was cool with it. And so then it was I signed up. I just did the whole entire race with Michelle. We stuck together the whole time. So she then nominated me for the award with Ultra Sign Up. I didn't know until they announced like their finalists. There was like five. I think there was five finalists. I was one of five and there was different categories, but I was one of five in the pacer category. And so I didn't know I was nominated or a finalist until they made their Instagram post. And then it was just campaigning. It was a popular vote at that point. So I campaigned for it because why not? You know, you get I got like I won like a swag bag with like a hat and shirts, Ultra Sign Up shirts and water bottles and a beanie. And I got to go on their podcast and do like a 10-15 minute interview with like the other winners. They did like a compilation podcast. So I will say there were some pretty epic pacing stories that I was competing against, and on merit was mine like the most impressive, gnarly one, but probably not. But I campaigned for it pretty hard over the 2 weeks or however long it was that voting was open. It's just fun though. It was just it's just so much fun.
So out of all the things that you've paced, what was probably like the coolest course you've ever paced at?
Oh man, probably Elephant Mountain, which is a race that they do here. I paced my buddy Oscar, so he was doing a 50-mile race. It's a pretty remote one. I actually picked him up. I think even he was allowed to get a pacer. I think even before the halfway mark. I think I ran the last 27 miles of this 50-mile course with him because it is from where I picked him up. I think to the next aid station, it was like 14 miles or something. It was a pretty long stretch, and it's remote. There's nothing out there. So and then even that next section, I think we only hit like maybe 2 aid stations or something, the whole like 27 miles. Maybe there was 3. There's just some really big, long, remote sections. But it's just beautiful out there. And I think that's more fun when you're really out in the middle of nowhere, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think he would mind me saying he was in like rough shape coming into the aid station and he was ready to drop out. He was like, I'm not even going back out there. And it probably took close to an hour of me convincing him to just go out and try it. I eventually was just like, look, I drove here to this aid station. My car's right here. Use my poles because his leg was hurting. I was like, let's go a mile. If we do a mile and you're like, nope, can't do this, we just turn around a mile back. We're in my car. And once I got him moving, he was like, okay, I can do this. And we got it done. He finished, I think, maybe a half an hour under cutoff or something. So it was really cool to be able to experience that course because it's such an epic course, but then also help him get to that finish. That was a very memorable day, probably the most memorable pacing moment.
Oh, that's rad. That's cool.
So
you mentioned a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's just opened up some really cool, like the social media stuff has opened up some really cool opportunities for me because like coming up at Javelina 100 here in October, there's a lady coming down from Canada who also just reached out to me, found me through social media, and she's got this like incredible weight loss journey story where she's lost like 250 pounds or something, and she's done some marathons, and she's coming to Javelina to do the 100K, to do her first trail race. And so she hit me up like way back in January when registration opened. And so she's going to come down. I'll be out there pacing her last loop of Javelina. And so it's just so cool to connect with these people from like all over and in different stories and inspiring stories. And yeah, I get stoked on it. Like I said, I almost enjoy it more than my own races.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to. I'm working on a few pacing gigs, and one of them, fingers crossed, might be out your way. Possibly the Arizona Monster. I'm hoping to get to pace a little bit at that one, but
oh yeah,
hopefully maybe. But I don't know. We'll see. But Yeah, that's rad. So, man, I I really want to do javelina. It just like it looks like the best time. Like every year it's on, I always kind of watch from afar. It's just like, man, that looks like just a big party, and there
Yeah,
just
it is.
happens to be a trail race there.
Yeah, yeah. It's always
So,
like it's always the weekend of Halloween, you know. So people are out there in costumes and partying, and it's like a rave slash Halloween party slash 100-mile race out in the desert. It's pretty unique.
yeah, that sounds rad. Um, so something I wanted to talk about because this is probably one of my favorite things I've seen on your Instagram page, and and I've heard you talk about this before, and I was hoping you'd share it with us.
Sure.
The man versus horse. Um, Run us through what this is. Like, um, yeah, it definitely got me stoked and kind of sparked an interest in me. Run us through the Arizona or man versus horse. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's a older race. I mean, I think this year, this October when they run it, I think is the 40th year. I want to say it started in 1984. It's an old school ultra in Prescott, Arizona, where it is there's a 50-mile distance and a 25-mile distance. It's runners, you know, it's an ultra marathon. There are also horses competing um, at the same distances, and you are competing against the other runners and also competing against the horses. And
Oh,
so, yeah, they have, it starts on a ranch, Fain Ranch, there in Prescott. You run through this field kind of for about 10 miles, and then it goes up and down Mingus Mountain and then back to the ranch. It's one big 50-mile loop. But it's when I say it's old school, there's no timing mats. There's not even a start line. There's no banner. Um, it's you're out in this field, there's a bush. They put like a few pink ribbons on this bush, and then about time the race is about to start, they say, okay, everybody kind of just come gather around. There's just runners, and I think there was 25 of us runners. It was a small group of people, however many horses. We're all just kind of huddled together in this field, and the race director just looks at his watch and goes, okay, all right, you guys can head out. And then you just taking off in this field, and there's horses galloping by you, and um yeah, there's no timing mats, there's no electronic timing. So every time you get to an aid station, you have to give them your bib. They radio it back down to the base camp to track your progress. And even the finish line, the video that my wife took of me at the finish line, I wasn't totally sure it was the finish line. I could see the trailers and the bonfire and everybody hanging out, so I knew like I was close to the end of the race. But it was really there was like a pole in the ground, and there was a guy sitting at a table with a clipboard, and he's like, "What's your number?" And I tell him my bib number. He goes, "Okay," and I go, "Is that it? Am I done?" He goes, "Yeah, you're finished." Okay, no finish line, no nothing. Which I thought was really cool that it was just like so no frills, and yeah, and you're racing horses, so you're passing and
man.
getting passed by horses all day long. Yeah.
Is this like single track too? Or and there's like
Um,
horses. Like,
It's most of it's not single track, and then some of it is on
okay,
like fire roads and dirt roads, so it's a little bit
okay,
wider. I mean, there are some
still,
narrow trails. We had one moment where it was me and a guy that were kind of running together, and we were going up this really steep section of Mingus, and I mean, it's and that section was just single track, and it's a relatively steep drop off on the side, and it's going up. There's nowhere to really go around these horses, and two of these horses had just stopped, and the rider's like, they're exhausted, they're not going to move right now. And so I'm like, well, what do we do? And they're like, you can
huh?
just hold on to them. And so we held on to them and just shimmied kind of around the side of these. I mean, and they're when you're up next to a horse, I've never really been around horses, they're freaking huge.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
is it going to kick me? And they're like, no, they're too tired to do anything like that. So I just took their word for it and scooted around these
Yeah, they're too
horses.
tired.
But they put ribbons on the tails of horses that are most likely or more likely to like kick, so you can kind of be aware of that during the race. But yeah, it's such a unique experience, and it's so funny because it doesn't get like, if you look at ultra sign up, I mean, it's like, I don't know, 20, 30 people every year. It's not like they have a huge turnout, and I don't necessarily know that they want to. I think they like having it be this old school race. But even, talking about community, you get in there Friday night and they have their pre-race briefing, and they got a bonfire. It's a bunch of runners out there, a bunch of cowboys out there. And then even afterwards, when we finished the race, they catered this meal for everybody. It's just cowboys, ultra runners. We had everybody been out there all day. There's a bonfire. There's live music. They had some guy playing country music, food. Everyone's just
That's
hanging out.
cool.
Every finisher gets a belt buckle. Um, yeah, it's such a unique race. That's my favorite race experience, hands down, like easily.
Man, even on like a fire road, I think that's like 1,000+ pound animal. I couldn't imagine having to run around him. That's
Yeah,
wild. Uh,
yeah, it's
yeah, I love that. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Oh no, you're good.
Yeah, I love that, man. I did a thing a while back where not, I mean, I wasn't running against horses, but the checkpoint, like the checkpoints, like the finish line was like you grabbed a popsicle stick on your way to the guy with the clipboard. So I always loved like races like that, kind of like underground, like races like that. So that's pretty cool. That man, I might have to give that a try some year. That sounds really cool. I'd run with some
So
horses.
speaking of events like that are a little more like underground, like grassroots stuff. So this wasn't a race. This was a group run that happens here in July. It's the weekend of the 4th of July. So I just did it for the first time, and they call it Circle of Hell. And you go out from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. out of South Mountain, so out the desert. It was like July 6th, hottest part of the day. It was like 112 when we started, and it's just a 1 mile loop.
Oh man.
And the goal is 3 hours in the heat of the day, and it's just to see how many 1 mile loops you can do. And it's
Oh
just a group of guys here that kind of set it up, and they do it to raise money for charity. But yeah, you set up a little, we set up like a little aid station in the parking lot, because you come through the parking lot every time. So me and my buddies had a canopy. We had ice, ice water, everything we would need to like get wet or ice down or cool off between loops. And you come through and you have a bib that's just got 1 through like 27, and they just marker off your loop every time you come through, and write it on
oh
a
cool.
board. Write it on a board that's just it's just cardboard that somebody made a grid on and put your name on. And it's just this like kind of underground, like grassroots thing. But that was like so much fun too. That was, again, probably some of the most fun I've had at a race in a while. And it was just kind of a little local thing that people just put on themselves, really. This wasn't like an
Yeah,
Aravaipa event or anything like that.
that sounds right. That's right up my alley. So like I love doing like 8 hour, 12 hour, 24 hour. I did something similar. I did a 24 hour 2 weeks ago, and same thing. It's like I had like a little like an analog clicker. Just like you click it, it was like a 0.44 mile loop. You had to like I ended up like throughout the night I like lost track of my loops, so it did not matter what your watch said. So I ended up losing a few miles. Ultra sign up showed what you tallied for yourself, not what your watch was. So I love
Mm.
stuff like that, like those little loop, like underground kind of courses. And same thing, there was no timing mats or nothing like that. So I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
So something we both have in common coming up soon is we're both running our first 100 miler, and I think we're a week apart, right? Like I think yours is a week before mine, or the
Yeah.
other way around.
I think I'm the
Um,
four. I'm October 5th. I think yours is like the
okay,
12th
yeah,
or something, right?
yeah, the 12.
Yep.
So, what are you running, and how's? Let's talk about training. We're both right around the same time, well, exactly the same time, pretty much. But so let's talk about that a
Yeah.
little bit.
So I'm doing saddles 100. which is a 100-mile race up in Prescott, same area that I did Man Against Horse. It's one big loop around the city of Prescott. It's a relatively new race. This is only the second year they've done it. Last year was the inaugural year. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like, do you know who like Michael Versteeg is? Are you familiar with
Yeah,
Mike
yeah,
Versteeg? Yeah, so it's his race that he
yeah.
puts on with Satisfy with his sponsor, and so yeah, I picked it for my first 100. I knew I wanted to do one like in the fall, and it was kind of between this and Javelina for local races, and I just like the idea of doing one big loop and not seeing the same terrain the whole time, and not doing loops and seeing something different than what I get here. So yeah, and I'm pretty much in the thick of training right now. So I have a coach who lives in Tucson who puts together all of my training and programs and stuff. And yeah, I mean, right now we're this week is like a 50-mile week. Next week is, I think, just a little bit more. And then I'll have a deload week, and then I'll really have like 3 pretty beefy like peak weeks where I'll put up some pretty high volume, and then it'll be time to taper. It's already less than 2 months away. I started
Yeah, I
posting
mean,
about it
it's
and kind of getting ready for it like at the 4-month mark, and it's already been over like 2 months.
no,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna start doing the same thing with mine. I just like wasn't sure. Like I always get kind of worried like if I talk too much about it and I fail, but at this point it's like forget it. Like it's like if I fail then whatever. Like I'll learn. People DNF, right? But
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, same thing. I'm going through about the same time frame. I think I've got a pretty regular week, and then mine starts to really ramp up. Uh,
Yeah.
it Saddles has got a pretty. Back to that. Michael Vistig just did a really good episode on Borderland Beyond or DFL before DNF. By the way, it was really really
Oh,
good.
really? I'll have to
That's where I
check that
remember
out.
him from. Yeah, Josh Rosenthal's podcast. Um, what kind of elevation profile and vert does the Saddles 100 have?
So I think it's about 13,000. The reason I say I think is because they still have the race info from last year on the website. None of it's been updated, and it was a big loop last year, and I know this year they're reversing the loop. So last year it was like 13,000 feet. I'm assuming by reversing it, it's probably not going to change it too much. Um, and if it goes like how last year did, I don't think the official course or the official race manual or anything like that came out until like maybe 3 or 4 weeks before the race. So I don't have, if there's going to be changes to the course or anything like that, I don't know yet. So I'm kind of just looking at everything that's online in reverse and basing, my training off of that. But I'm planning for it to be 13,000 feet total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get lost in that. Like I think I've heard you say before that you don't necessarily pay like a whole lot of attention to like routes or
Yeah.
like race details. I'm the same way, but so it's like by the time I actually will look into like vertical and all that stuff, it's like the hay's kind of in the barn anyways. It's like all right, like I like at least have like a rough idea where I should be headed here. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm,
I'll usually know the distance, and I'll know like the vertical gain, but like I won't know like how many aid stations there are, how far apart they are, what the cutoffs are. I don't know why. It's almost like I feel more relaxed if I'm not like scrutinizing and like going over every little detail. I know the big picture, and I'll prepare for that, and then but it hasn't bit me in the butt yet, not
yeah,
knowing like all of the details. But it's almost like a way. It's for whatever reason in my mind, it's a more relaxing way to approach it, other than stressing over like every little detail or trying to. I think part of my concern is
yeah,
if I know every little thing, every aid station, every cutoff, then I'm going to formulate a very strict plan. And if I do that, and inevitably when something doesn't go to plan, I don't really want that to throw me off too much. So I kind of want to just have a broader idea of what I'm doing, but not be like married to some concrete plan that's probably going to fall apart at some point.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Like I learned that my last two ultras, I had a plan going in. I'm sticking to this plan, and if there's anything that ultra distance has taught me is your plan means almost nothing. Like it's gonna change, and you just have to kind of deal with that. Yeah, a comment from the back. It's going to happen regardless of how many spreadsheets you have. Like, spot on.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So,
It makes it easier to roll with the punches,
yeah,
I think.
yeah. That's the way I look at it. You know, your plan's going to change. It's going to change from mile to mile, right? Like, and like something I've been told, and now I repeat over and over again. So like, all you can do is run the mile you're in, right? And that comes from Jason, actually. Shout out to him. I repeat a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that Jason says because he always has a good stuff to say. But so, all right, man. Uh, so let's talk a little bit about juggling, like fatherhood and like work and training, like content creating.
Yeah.
And that my ongoing joke with every guest I have, I always ask this question because I need to, like, I want to know. But
Yeah.
run me through like what it's like juggling all this stuff.
Um, the training is not as tough as it would seem. I almost always, not always, not every week's perfect, not every day's perfect, but I typically go early, especially during almost always during the weekdays. I start 5:30, depending on how much I need to do, and I like to be home and done with my run, like kind of as the kids are waking up or as my wife is waking up. So that way it's just out of the way, and it didn't cut into any parts of the day. I am right now, and I go early on the weekends too. And I mean, part of it's to beat the heat because it's just so hot here in the summer. But even when in the winter, I still go early. Same idea. I just don't want to cut into too much of the family time. Um, and that's kind of how I balance it. And honestly, for the most part, when I'm not like in a peak week or peak weeks, my time spent running could be 6 hours, maybe 9 hours, up to 10 hours, like kind of on like more of a base level. So really, if and I take 2 days off from running a week. I only run 5 days a week. So, but if you take that, what I say it's 8 hours, and you divide that by seven, it's a little bit over an hour a day on average per week, which really isn't that crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
During peak weeks, it does take more time, and my wife knows that this is something that I'm is important to me and something that I'm work hard to do, and I just have to accept that sometimes I'm in a season of life where the focus is more heavily on this aspect, and speaking of my kids, I don't know if you can hear them screaming in the background. Uh,
Oh, man.
and and there's going to be times where I'm not running as much, and I kind of feel like that balances out over the long haul. Not every day or every week or even every month has to be like perfectly balanced. If it's more balanced on the year, if you're using that as the scale, then I've learned to be okay with that. The content creation portion is tricky because I have not been good about and have a goal to be better about carving out and setting aside time for that. Because right now I really do it when I can. I shoehorn it in here. I start a reel. I get it halfway done. I wait till the kids are taking a nap. I try to finish it, and that can get kind of like hectic. And I'm really going like hand to mouth with this stuff. With the stuff I'm posting, I'm a lot of times coming up with the idea and then making it and posting it that same day. I'm not like pre-planning too much or batching things. If I have 2 or 3 days worth of content, like that's I know what I'm going to post and is ready to go, that is like I'm way ahead of the game by my normal standards. But I want to be more like set aside time where I'm like, okay, I'm going to set aside a few hours on this day, and I'm just going to edit, and I'm going to try to make like 5 or 6 reels or whatever, because I think it's just be more efficient than me trying to like kind of do it here and there. Um, but so that part gets a little more hectic, and that part gets more stressful. Oh, the other thing I want to say, I am a stay-at-home father. So when I come home for the day, my wife goes to work, like I'm here with the kids. So I'm not, I mean, it is whatever I don't know if you want to call it a job or it's a responsibility. It's not like you're sitting around doing nothing when you have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old at home all day. But I don't have like a job that I'm going to that I'm trying to balance out. But that is part of why, not the whole reason, but part of why I started making content. Um, when I made the decision to stay home and stay with the kids, I thought maybe there's an opportunity here that whenever I do go back to work, I can like make a switch, do something different, do something that I care about, not go back to the same type of like sitting in a cubicle manufacturing sales that I was doing. And as I've been creating content and getting some traction with that, I don't want to get into too many specific details, but it's opened up opportunities for me to do some things like starting my own business wise, different things that I'm working on. I don't want to get into the details of it, but
Yeah.
so that's been really cool too. But yeah, but it's been a kind of hectic because I don't have like a outside of the running part, I don't really have a set routine. So a lot of this stuff that I'm trying to do, get certain like education on certain things and file certain paperwork and make content is all kind of been I'm just kind of doing it where I can find the free time. But I'm hoping to get more organized with all of that. If this is going to become a source of income in a way, or at least the social media is going to be an avenue that I can promote a source of income. I'm being vague with that, but
Yeah, I understand. I
yeah,
just love it, man. Like you kind of got me fired up because I bet I've got like, I don't know, 10 things in my drafts. Like I'm slowly getting like the guts to like post a little bit more,
yeah,
and trying to be a little bit on the lighter side of things too. So yeah, you've definitely inspired that in me. And I know you, certain you do with other people too. Yeah, and I
yeah.
look forward to seeing where this is going
Yeah,
too.
yeah. It's a lot of fun, and it's been really fun to like kind of be more creative with like video making and it's but I mean I posted stuff for like a year and a half before anything really ever did well at all. I mean, my if you go back and look at my videos from like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, they're shitty. They're just a really way too close view of my face, just kind of bobbing on a trail, and there's like some music. It wasn't good, but I made a goal to like put out a piece of content every single day, and I mean I haven't done that 100%, but more or less I put out like a piece of content like every day for probably like almost 3 years now. And just in the last like year and a half or so, it's kind of got some steam. But
Yeah.
yeah, just make. I mean, my advice when people ask me about that stuff is like, just make stuff you like. I just make stuff you like that's authentic to you, and just put it out there. And like, and then honestly, once you do that, I mean, you kind of have to divorce yourself from like the results because once it's out in the world, it's gonna do however well it's gonna do. You can't really have much impact on it after that. But it's definitely like making silly videos on Instagram of me running is definitely starting to open up a lot of doors for me. So which is like, I mean, that's just so cool to me. Go.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it's rad, man. I'm you 3 years ago, but at least I can kind of like, kind of take an example and be like, all right, man, like just kind of like you said, just be genuine, about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I love that. And I hope I look forward to seeing your content. Look forward to see how it'll grow. And uh, we're running out of time, unfortunately. Um, and this has been super rad having you on here, Chris. Like I said, I've been following for a while, kind of lurking for a while, and I was so stoked when I reached out to you. You said yes to be on the pod, so it's
Yeah.
an honor.
No,
So,
I
man,
appreciate you reaching out to me.
yeah, do us all a favor and you know, kind of shout out, where to find you and any Easter eggs of what you got coming or any projects or anything like that, and then yeah, man, thank you so much for your time and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, the only place to find me is on Instagram. It's Chris Morrison underscore runs at Chris Morrison underscore runs. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm documenting my build up to Saddles 100. And then I'll be doing a little race here in May called the Cocodona 250. So there will be a lot of documentation leading up to that
Nice.
as well. And I am close to announcing a business that I'm going to be starting that's running related.
Cool.
So that
Nice.
announcement will be coming pretty soon.
Cool. Yeah, I saw. I won't lie. I looked at your ultra sign up. I was like, oh, he's going to do Cocodona 250. I've got my
Yeah.
sight set on a 200 miler too. Hopefully the Oregon 200, but we'll see. So that's cool, man. We're kind of on the same, I guess, distance trajectory a little bit. But
Yeah.
cool, man. Well, thank you again for your time, and it was a pleasure having you on, Chris. And I just want to say to listeners, thank you for tuning in. And like I said before, subscribe, like, follow, and do yourself a favor and follow Chris. You're going to love his content. And thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you beyond the finish line.